I mean, Trump has overreached. J.D. Vance has overreached. Stephen Miller has overreached. And now they have this entirely new dynamic, right? You see the half of the employees at the Heritage Foundation now being like, what the f***? We have Nazi supporters like all around us. Like, what's going on? And you see what's going on in the Federalist Society. There's an open war now. Like, I think this is actually a somewhat encouraging sign that we've seen over the last few weeks. The election, the Republican Civil War, state Republican parties are kind of backing away from the gerrymandering war. It doesn't paint a pretty picture for this band of cretins that have arranged themselves around the executive branch.
How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing all right. You know, it's a cloudy day here in Los Angeles. A rare occurrence for us.
But gotta have into every life a little cloud.
Well, good to see you. Good to see you, Daniel. How are you doing?
I'm great. I've been enjoying your outpouring. And I figured it'd be fun to just connect for a bit and talk about what's happening.
Sure.
I mean, it's I think both of us are finding it hard not to just be glued to the rampage of current events. Would you say it's a fair assessment?
Oh, I mean, I find it quite painful, actually. Like, I woke up this morning and I saw the news, the Epstein emails, and then the 20,000 email drop. And I kind of spaced out for 20 minutes and then forced myself to go on and start seeing what commentators were saying. I mean, this stuff makes me genuinely mad. You say glued. I wish nothing more than to escape this moral hell that we are now currently living through. This moral vacuum. I guess glued, but not. I didn't put the glue down. I'm being pulled along by the tides and the currents of history against my will.
Yeah, well, it's like we're watching a car crash while we're inside the car.
Yes.
And I always think of you because I mean you from the whole tech world and you're close to a lot of these characters, so it gives you a unique kind of perspective. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's so many things we could start talking about. The shutdown. I saw you were raging about the shutdown.
Yeah, I was pretty upset about that.
Yeah, I mean, and what's your kind of what are some of your perspectives right now around? I mean, do you see, because it's by the time they develop a whole new Democratic Party with a spine, we'll be we'll have chips in our brain and be serving Elon Musk his croissants.
Well, I'm not that cynical. You're more cynical than me, Daniel. Wow. I look. I mean, I think that the 8 Democrats that caved are, well, I mean, to use the turn of phrase that I've grown fond of, which honestly, both the fascists and the anti-fascists use, is that I don't think these people know what time it is, right? I think that there's this thought process that exists. I wrote a piece called "The Simulation is Collapsing," and the simulation is a metaphor, right, for sort of the epistemic closure for the narratives that certain people live within, and the centrist technocratic middle live in this world of polls and focus groups and consultants and workshopped messaging, and I think Jon Stewart, I think, called it in a recent interview, and I loved it. I love the way he framed it, was ultra processed speech, and I think these people especially these 8 Democratic senators, simply just do not understand the political environment that they're now operating within, and they don't understand how to get out of it either. Even some of in fact, most of the Democratic senators who voted no to this, right? This is a administration, such as we call it. I don't like to call it an administration. I like to call it a regime, because that's what it is. And it is engaged in a attempt at regime change, to change the nature of power within our political order. That is what is happening. I mean, there's military on our streets, right? I mean, have people not? I mean, do people not notice that this is happening? Sorry, I'm going to plug my phone in here because the battery's low and I don't want to lose you guys. Let me see. So there we go. Yeah, we have power. Okay. So um, yeah, and I think, but it's not all is not lost, right? I mean, I think that I was quite encouraged by the elections last Tuesday night. I mean, I think that showed that, as I said, the simulation is collapsing. And I think this establishment that's sort of hanging on for dear life, and they're caught up in sort of, I mean, Upton Sinclair, the famous sort of, socialist politician from California during the progressive era, who basically said that, like, it's impossible to convince a man of something when his salary depends on not understanding it. I think is really like the way in which to sort of understand these people and sort of the incentive structure that they're stuck within, right? Because they've gotten very used to a politics that is tied up in a fundraising regime of corporate donors, of friendly,
They're stuck with salting cotton wool.
yeah. I mean, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's one way of putting it, I guess. I mean, but and I think increasingly, they are being revealed to be wearing no clothes, to use the idiom there.
I mean,
And I think so. Go ahead.
Oh no, just going back a little bit. I mean, I also felt like they focused the entire shutdown kind of idea on these healthcare subsidies, which obviously was a drastic thing. And some people are arguing that the Democrats have gained political capital because they made it so clear that the Republicans are the ones who inflicted this. But I sort of am shocked that they didn't talk about all the other principled reasons to not verify the budget, including the unbelievable billions of dollars going to ICE. I mean, I don't know how many billions ICE gets, but it's like, I find that frightening. I'm already hearing stories of people that I know. I mean, I saw friends last night for dinner, and their friend was Egyptian, and just got married here, and his wife has dual citizenship, and they knocked on his door. He mistakenly opened it, and they took him away, and he's been in detention for like 5 months now. No hearing.
That's horrifying.
No trial. There was a big article in the Times today about all these guys who were asylum seekers from Iran. Some of them they came here illegally, but they had reported and they were seeking asylum, who were just sent back to Iran, who we just bombed, where, their lives are now imperiled. They might be tortured or killed. So this horrifying monstrosity that we've created, we're now giving $50-60 billion. It's like the 9th largest funded military.
Five x their funding. It's insane.
It's insane, and it's like, why didn't the Democratic senators make an issue out of that? Like, why is that?
Yeah, because you want to know the answer? There's an answer. I mean, the answer is that and I've talked to people I know people on the Hill, right? From my corporate world, I know lobbyists. I worked with lobbyists. I have friends that are lobbyists. Some of them are good people, actually, right? Who will agree with things I'm about to say, right? Which is that a lot of the Democrats on the Hill. I mean, maybe half of the caucus is just they're just. You have the kind of the Chris Murphy camp, and then you have sort of like the Tim Kaine camp, and there is a genuine disagreement within both the Senate and House caucus about whether or not what we're looking at right now represents what I would suggest it is, which is like a slow motion self-coup that this executive is engaged in. I very strongly believe that this.
I don't see what's slow motion about it. It's like 10 times faster than what Putin did or what happened in Hungary. It's actually happening at a lightning speed,
Yeah.
really.
Well, touche. But I think that in some ways, though, I think is to our favor, actually. That'll sound weird. I think the fact that they're moving so fast and breaking so many things so quickly. Like Orban took like 7 years to do what they've tried to do in 6 months, and it is true, right? As Jefferson warned that that humans are predisposed to tolerate the insufferable. And we talk about like a boiled frog and stuff like that. And that's certainly I think a better strategy if you're going to hollow out the democratic content of democratic institutions, that one should do so slowly without imposing any pain. But these people have decided to go after a sort of a right-wing Trotsky-esque maximum program at maximum speed, and in so doing, they have animated a great amount of opposition. And as it pertains to sort of these Democrats in Congress who just sort of simply don't believe this is happening, there's a lot of people who are just sort of lost in their normalcy bias, or just like unwilling to realize that sometimes doing the right thing is going to cost you something. It's going to cost that donor
a lot of the Democrats, get paid win or lose. Like I saw there was they had a hearing with, I think, Kamala Harris's, campaign strategist, who was getting paid $2 million. And they asked him what his bonus was if she won. He was like, he didn't want to mention that it was like another $2 million. So, it was, $2 million for running a losing campaign, which isn't bad. And then $4 million, if you win, that's a colossal amount of money. So yeah, it seems clear. It seemed that way for years, that the Democrats are equally incentivized to lose, elections or fights or whatever.
It's not just that. They do want to win. Political parties are obviously. Gaining power is obviously the great incentive of any political party of any kind. But they're certainly diluted by the bubbles that they're in. They're very used to a different kind of politics, right? I think there's this theory of politics, right? The kind of the thermostatic theory of politics that that things just sort of go left and then right and then back and forth, and everything's a reaction and a counter reaction. And I think a lot of like establishment Democrats just sort of think that way, and they're just sort of like, look, people may not like us, they may hate us, they may hate the fact that like I sip wine in Sonoma Valley with Silicon Valley CEOs that none of my voters like, but the Republicans are fucking up so bad that they're going to have no choice but to vote for me next year. And that is kind of, I think, like, the cynicism, and I think people see that, and it's why they like fucking hate these people so much now, and why there is like such a sort of a populist upswell now. And I think they're doomed, right? I think the Democratic establishment is done for, right? I think we are seeing the beginnings of like what is kind of a Democratic Tea Party like thing now that is going to, I think, consume the establishment. I don't think the Democratic Party that goes into the midterms next year is going to be led by what we currently call the establishment. I think they are in their death throes right now as a result of the dynamic that I'm describing.
No, I mean, I hope that that's true, and I I reach out to you partially because I know you're more tied in with the establishment in different areas, including the
They don't
tech
like
world.
me as much as they used to, it turns
Yeah.
out. I mean,
Um, but I mean, I guess a big question has been to what extent they're going to have sort of manipulated the elections in 2026, and in that way, the election last week was promising because it didn't really look like they had the capacity to manipulate it as
it
much as we had maybe would have been concerned. But also, they weren't.
and it is interesting, right? Because we are now seeing, we've seen like several states, like we're seeing pretty fierce opposition in North Carolina to the redistricting plans. Indiana has basically said, like the Indiana Republican Party has basically said, no, we're not going to do that. They're backing away. You saw this in Utah as well. The Utah Republicans are sort of backing down from the gerrymandering stuff that Trump was pushing them to do. And that suggests to me that's a good sign for us on the pro-democracy side. It suggests that some of the state Republican parties kind of see the writing on the wall and are starting to kind of hedge their bets now. And they're like, maybe we shouldn't put all of our eggs in the Trump and fascist basket right now because the peoples are mad. And so you're kind of seeing a increasing lack of will among state Republican parties to just toe Trump's line, and that's a very recent development. I think we had a we've had a Republican congressman today has kind of come out and has in response to the Michael Wolff revelation, and it's kind of saying, yeah, like we need to understand what Trump's involvement is here. Like, and you can and you have the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing. I mean, Trump has overreached. JD Vance has overreached. Stephen Miller has overreached. And now they have this entirely new dynamic, right? You've got half of the employees at the Heritage Foundation now being like, what the fuck? Like, why are like, what we have fucking Nazi supporters, like, all around us, like what's going on? And like the head of the Heritage is on fire, and you see what's going on in the Federalist Society. There's an open war now. Like you suddenly have a bunch of conservatives, especially like Jewish conservatives, that are like, what the fuck? Like, and so I think this is actually a somewhat encouraging sign that we've seen over the last few weeks. The election, the Republican Civil War, the fact that state Republican parties are kind of backing away from the gerrymandering war. It doesn't paint a pretty picture for this band of cretins that have arranged themselves around the executive branch.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that's correct. I mean,
They will escalate, of course.
yeah, but also, I mean, this is I mean, we could talk about what's underway economically in terms of kind of these policies which are having such a negative impact on like the middle class people and so on. And that seems intentional, or farmers, bankrupt farmers, then buy their
Yeah.
lands. Vance is an investor in a fund that basically does that, right? Like when farmlands go bankrupt, they buy it up, and then they sometimes rehire the same farmers to be like serfs on what used to be their own land. Um, yeah, so I mean, in a way, when you have this kind of machine heading in this direction, you have to keep finding new scapegoats, right? Because they have to constantly distract people from thinking that it's actually Trump and Musk and Zuckerberg, and the Koch brothers and the Coors people who are actually the problem. So it's almost
Well, there is something we should talk about. There is something we should talk about on that point that really worries me. But yes,
please, you come right back to it. I was going to say that. So the anti-Semitism thing seems inevitable. And it's clear they've been flirting with that. Bannon and Musk have made Nazi salutes. Doge has SS material. I'm probably sure a lot of the ICE officers are actually Proud Boys or white Christian nationalist extremists, and so on. So I mean, it's sort of tending in that direction. I mean, I could see a situation where there's a concerted effort to get the Jews out of the U.S. to basically send the Jews packing back to
I don't think that's
Israel.
going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. Like I don't think it gets that far. In fact, like I think I mean, honestly, I'm seeing even in my kind of network. I mean, I have friends who are like fucking like anti-Trump people. Like
Yeah.
they irritate the fuck out of me. But like I try not to burn every bridge. But
Friends who are not anti-Trump people, friends who are pro-Trump still.
No, I mean, there's this like I have like the kind of like this kind of the sort of the the I mean the sort of the kind of people who are kind of like none of the above types on the right, the Jonah Goldberg type people who sort of like see him as sort of like the North Star, this sort of like very irritating position that like there's no acceptable choices. And they I mean, they're a dwindling group of people. But I mean, I think they've like really the sort of stance that they've had, the sort of like no enemies to my right stance, I think is like really blowing up in their face. And now you're seeing like, I mean, the like Ben Shapiro and Eric Erickson and these figures are now sort of like realizing that they there's a noose slowly being lowered down around their neck and they're starting to fight back. And so I mean,
Clearly they didn't care as long as the noose was aimed at black and brown people, but now they're like, uh-oh. But I mean, that's classic,
yeah,
right?
I mean, well, man, yeah. First they came for the and so anyway, and so I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm the most like optimistic I've been this year, like over those last few weeks, because it really does seem like these assholes have really stepped in it. And I think now the more important conversation, I think, on the pro democracy side is, and look, there's going to be fights ahead, and like they're probably going to like Jan 6th of the fucking midterms, and it's going to be fucking messy and stuff. Like I get that, but like I'm optimistic that a engaged American majority is going to push through that next year, and the Democrats will take control of Congress on this trajectory one way or another. And I think the bigger question that I'm worried about is how how committed is this political coalition going to be to setting aside internecine divisions and really focusing, once they're in control of one or both chambers of Congress, exercising those Article 1 powers at their apex against the Article 2 branch. The Congress has a lot of powers that they haven't really used, right? Like one, for example, is that Congress has a power known as the inherent contempt power. And the court, the Article 3 branch has this as well, and it gives Congress the power to arrest any American, including member of the government, any American who refuses to uh, 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 respond to a subpoena before Congress. And Congress actually has a jail. People should look this up. There's actually a jail. It hasn't been used in like 90 years, like in the basement of the Capitol building. And technically the Sergeant at Arms of the Congress has the constitutional power to through his or her authority and through deputization to send somebody out into the world with the power of the inherent contempt power and drag that person before Congress to testify. And what I would hope that we're impressing upon these Democrats who are really worried about their corporate donors and their Silicon Valley donors is that they are prepared when they take power to hold hearings that drag fucking Tim Cook and Mark Zuckerberg and all these motherfuckers before, like before the country with the cameras rolling and ask some very serious questions. Like, Tim, did you, when you gave, how much was that 24 karat gold based ornament that you custom designed for Trump that you gave to him just, within, less than 48 hours of receiving targeted tariff relief on the iPhone importations from China's factories in Shenzhen? That looked like a quid pro quo. What the fuck do you have to say for yourself? Tell the American people. I think like that is like what I think the pro-democracy coalition, I don't care if you're like a centrist or you're a progressive, like we need to demand that these politicians act on behalf of the interests of the American people, the rule of law and the Constitution, and bring some morality and sanity back. And I think we need a aggressive Congress that uses its constitutional authority at its maximum, especially at a time when the Article 2 branch is trying to use its authority beyond its maximum. We need to restore that Madisonian balance that has been sent awry.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a long time, since I know your specialty is the tech world. What do you think about this tech embrace of Christianity? I mean, I recently got thrown
Oh,
out
I
of
don't think it's real.
what's
I don't think it's. I mean, I know that Peter Thiel's like doing this like fucking. If people know about this like Antichrist thing, it's like
what? Yeah,
honestly, it's like
let's explain for a little bit. I mean, there's a group called, I think, Article 27, Article 17.
yeah,
But they're
yeah.
kind of like trying to create this new tech. But I've actually seen it. I mean, Brock Pierce, somebody I've known for a long time.
Fucking guy.
His Instagram is now, endless Christian propaganda. Another friend of mine, Nicole Patrice, who used to work closely with Thiel, she now had a thing for, she invited me on a WhatsApp group for people who are like reestablishing their traditional faith. And then I was like, guys, like actually, I think I quoted like Thomas Paine about how Thomas Paine wrote about God, and they threw me off the chat. I've been getting thrown off WhatsApp chats with tech people recently. But
Oh my God. Well, look, I mean, it's like, I mean, it's easy to understand, right? It's just the fact that, I mean, it's pathetic, right? We're in the world of pathos here, right? Where this giant Shakespearean tragedy. So, you have the tech world, and things are kind of like not great, really. I think in the tech world, I think there's like an understanding right now that like all of this kind of quote unquote growth that's kind of being driven by what looks increasingly like an AI bubble and a crypto bubble um is increasingly on like fragile ground. And I think there's like an understanding, like I just sort of the spidey sense that everyone has, that if the Republicans and Trump and JD Vance like don't succeed in consolidating power, that what is going to happen is a regulatory and taxation hammer is going to come down so hard on them. Lena Khan's going to come back to the FTC and it's going to be brutal for them. And so I think they're like trying to just think through and like and cynically and through like self-rationalization, a way in which they can sort of attach themselves to a saleable coalition that can like hold on to power and protect them from what's coming. And it's sad. It's sad. I mean, they're not going to succeed at this. And honestly, like a lot of like really like, there's a lot of people. I'm not really just myself, but I know people who are, and you're seeing this. There's like people within the evangelical community, even, and Catholic churches and stuff like that have started to be like, what the fuck is this like Peter Thiel shit? Like, what are they talking about? And I don't think it's landing. I think it's a sign of a desperate attempt to, um, resituate a political coalition that can protect oligarchic interests, and it's I actually laugh at it because I don't think it has like any real chance of success really. Because the Christian nationalists, like the real serious Christian nationalists, like the NS Lions of the world and the Russell Votes of the world and these motherfuckers, like I mean they hate these fucking they want to make like Peter Thiel walk the plank, like ultimately. Like, I mean, they're not natural allies. So it's a really like pathetic attempt to try and uh um commandeer what they see as some sort of like gettable part of that political coalition when it's really not. That's my brutally honest take.
Mike, can you see me, by the way? Because
I can't see you. I only see myself. I see a nice photo of you. Oh, there you are. Yeah, there. Hey,
weird.
Hey,
It actually says the reverse thing. Like when you disable video, it enables video, and when you try to enable,
okay.
it disables it. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, and what did you make of? I mean, I do think there's like something though where they're searching for a kind of a legitimation, you know, a way to legitimate this whole thing they're doing. And so Thiel, his philosophical enterprise, as bizarre as it is, they're trying to create a justification for this whole shtick they're on. You know, I mean, he's like searching around for it. You know, I mean, what do you think of his theories around like the Antichrist,
the one where
Greta Thunberg, or you know, but also it's very much connected to a kind of I mean, Thiel talks about being religious but not spiritual, you know, so I don't know what he actually believes. I imagine that, you know, he's more or less a scientific rationalist, and yet he sees the value of the trappings of religion. He made Vance go from an atheist to a Catholic person and so on. Somebody asked, who is Mike Brock? Hannah asked. Mike, do you want to just explain who you are? So we didn't do that.
Who I am? Explain to who I am. Who is this thing? Who is this construction of matter that I'm a former I guess I'm a former tech executive, like turned like writer of some Substack. I don't know what I'm doing, Hannah. Actually, I'm just here talking to you. I used to work in tech. And I have taken a unhealthy interest in the arguments around maintaining our democracy and sort of our basic liberal values against what I see as a confluence of interests that seem hell bent on bringing an end to those things that I value so greatly and love about this country so much. That's who I am. Is that an okay explanation?
Yeah, I mean, you were a CEO of some tech company, kind of.
Yeah,
exactly.
I won't drag them into this.
Fair enough.
We'll try to be gentle.
And I really appreciate your writing, your Substack. And yeah, somebody said you're brilliant. Hang on their every word. So you know.
I encourage you all to think for yourself. That's like one of the things it's one of the virtues I'm trying to imbue on people. Critical thinking.
Hacker. It says Mike is the greatest. David Duda is also on your side. You got to get all cast characters there.
Oh no! I have fans. This is weird.
I've been trying to convince Mike that he should venture with me in a magazine. Like I feel we need a sort of antidote to the free press. But that process is going. I keep floating out that trial balloon. But let's go back to the discussion around sort of like this effort to create an ideology that provides some justification for their just desire for absolute power, I guess is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what it is, right? I mean, Peter Thiel. I mean, I've never met the man, by the way, although I know I've spoken to a lot of people who have, and especially over the last year, and those who have, who sort of agree with my position, and they've sort of like relayed their impressions to me of the man and how he thinks about things. I mean, I've consumed a lot of everything that I can to try and sort of understand him. He gave an interview with the New York Times. Ross Douthat has a podcast, Interesting Times, at the New York Times, which was really focused on exploring conversations in this quote unquote new right. I watched that interview that he gave with great interest. The one in which he hesitated on whether or not humanity should survive at all, which I think became quite a meme. And I wrote a piece about that. Look, he's a sort of like mental type that I recognize. I know a lot of people who think like him, at least sort of architecturally, systems thinker, really just like, loves technology and science and sort of the technological and scientific conception of progress. And, you see, you see this all over the place. Most people who think like that still tend to have some overriding morals that don't take them as far down the path as he has taken himself, drunk, I think, on his own power and his own bubble. In 2009, he famously wrote a piece in in a blog for the Cato Institute, a blog but I don't know if it still exists, but it was called Cato Unbound, where he laid out an argument that democracy and freedom are incompatible. Really, just sort of applying the sort of Platonic argument that tyranny of the majority will ultimately undermine freedom. Stupid bullshit understanding of political theory, but he's not a sophisticated. I don't consider him like a sophisticated philosophical thinker by any means. I think he's a rationalization engine towards like a very narrow set of instrumental goals, which is his theory of technological and scientific progress, to the exclusion of whatever forces, political, democratic, or cultural, that might stand in the way of that.
By the way, somebody had asked me who I was, so I might as well answer. I'm also a writer. I've written a number of books. My first book, Breaking Open the Head, was on psychedelic shamanism. That came out in 2002. It helped kind of launch the new psychedelic revival. I wrote a book actually about prophecies, like the Mayan prophecies, Aztec and Hopi prophecies, and Christian ideas of the apocalypse and all that stuff. That was a bestseller way back when. And I also have a Substack that's pretty popular, and I do online courses, and eventually this will go on YouTube, so I should put out that little reminder for people, if they're enjoying it, they should subscribe and like and all that good stuff. You've been going after Thiel's boy, Mike Solana these days.
Solana.
What's going on there? What's your problem with? I think Mike Solana, is he like chief marketing officer for?
Something like that, right? I've been. Yeah, he probably, I assume he thinks that, like, he's living rent free in my head, but like, really, I think he's like a really useful foil. Pirate Wires, this publication that they have, that he's so proud of, that he thinks is somehow speaking truth to power. That he unironically doesn't seem to recognize that he is in fact power, and speaks on its behalf. He thinks he's talking against liberal orthodoxy, and from a supposedly like libertarian angle. I think I got really upset at a take that they had. Well, not upset is the right thing. I shouldn't say I was upset, but I took to task a piece, I think about maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, that they had written on Heather Cox Richardson, which I thought was, it wasn't like factually like wrong, in the sense that like Heather Cox Richardson has demonstrably made some errors, like in her positions, but I thought was a very unfair take. Like, for example, she had attributed the assassin of Charlie Kirk. There was a rumor going around that he was associated with groypers, which is a word used to describe followers of Nick Fuentes. But she actually had walked that back by the next morning on her podcast, and so she had like issued a correction. And I had sort of like flagged that, to Catherine D and Blake Dodge, who wrote the piece, in a response piece that I wrote. And that like resulted in like a big back and forth, and they accused me of like being unintelligent, and like and I spent some time after that just like reading through pirate wires and just realizing like what a piece of like garbage it really is, which acts as if it's some sort of like punk rock sort of, speaking against the orthodoxy. When really I mean, it's a weird thing, right? He's like supposedly is a full-time employee of Peter Thiel's venture capital firm, Founders Fund.
But one of
But
the
is also
things,
the editor in chief of this.
well, one of
Sorry,
the
go
things
ahead.
that Thiel realized a while back is that the sort of culture world really mattered to him, like cultural perception. He sort of he definitely funded a lot. We were at Times Square together, where he funded a kind of like social club for a few years. I went to his
Yeah.
event, Redicon in Miami, and yeah, they do have this kind of punk rock. We're actually the sort of occult undergrounds who are like doing the cool things. Um, and it's been interesting to see the way the right wing actually has assimilated kind of what used to be all kind of like the left wing tropes, the radical sort of punk rock tropes. And meanwhile, the liberal or the left world became very kind of like prissy and focused on kind of identity and vulnerability and victimization, and kind of lost its like looseness and like freedom to express itself, which I think is one of the many reasons we ended up in this clusterfuck in a way.
Yeah, I mean, let me just cut through it. Like, I look at. I mean, I wrote a piece today, which is I think why you brought this up, right? Where I mentioned Mike Solana and Michael Wolff and Jeffrey Epstein in the same breath, which some might think is unfair. But my point is Solana is the editor in chief of apparently a journalistic enterprise. Michael Wolff also passing himself off as a journalist who has apparently been sitting on some pretty explosive information since 2015, as to sort of the relationship between Epstein and.
For people who don't know, maybe we should point out that Wolff was, I think he was like a Vanity Fair writer or New York Magazine writer. And then he wrote some very big best-selling books, including, I think, was it a biography of Trump or something like that?
Yeah. It was, and so my first read when I was like reading these emails was like when I looked at the date on them, I'm like, what the fuck? I mean, how you've known like this guy was like when you think about the victims, when you think of the suicide of the victim that happened in the last 2 years.
Yeah,
And
just once again, for people who haven't been totally paying attention, in these emails from like 2011, and Michael Wolff is basically kind of like in there with Epstein. He's like, oh yeah, like maybe you can get Trump to do something or whatever. Like it's kind of like he's being his like advisor or consigliere or something.
Which doesn't seem like the proper role of a journalist, right? And so I took him to task for that, and I was just really struck by the lack of morals that people have in our society, that the sort of the moral vacuum and that someone like Michael Wolff must exist within, to engage in transactionalism like that, where the moral context is sort of around him is sort of like beyond sort of like the immediate like sort of instrumental goal of whatever the fuck he was pursuing. And I just found that disgusting. And I noticed that most people weren't talking about it. They're mostly focused on how this like fucks Trump over, which is great, right? But like I was like,
Wolff is definitely one of these weird characters, and now he's like all over my YouTube. I mean, he's definitely he's got a big Substack. He's definitely taken one of the there's like Heather Cox Richardson is another one of these people who stepped into this sort of like ongoing punditry role for like the liberal side or progressive side or whatever. And yeah, he does seem like a bit of a questionable figure or ambiguous.
I mean, it seems like it. I mean, I've seen all I need to see. I've made my value judgments about a man's character as of this morning. And yeah, and so like I grouped Mike Solana in as somebody who I see as as an equally like immoral character, right? Like I think, I mean the purpose I think of their pursuit, right, is to is to engage in distraction and demagoguery of of left-wing cultural excess, which, in some cases exists, and I've called it out like myself, but like, any serious journalistic enterprise that, Pirate Wires like pretends to be, might have something to say about the fact that the current president of the United States is engaged in massive unconstitutional violations, Fourth Amendment violations, the masked men on the
the enormity of Trump's corruption, the amount of incredible, like the billions of dollars he's made, it's so insane that people don't even know how to talk about it.
Trump coin, a free 747 luxury jumbo jet that I think is like a straightforward fucking violation of the emoluments clause, but people say it's not because of some sort of legal fiction that it'll be donated to his presidential library, which I don't know. Can you imagine the founding fathers like listening to this sort of like mental gymnastics? And then of course, like by executive order, extending Article 5, NATO Article 5 like protections to the state of Qatar. The level of fucking corruption, and for
the pardoning of what's his name, Jason Huang, who was the one who sort of orchestrated the Trump coin.
Yeah. And then CZ from Binance. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right, that's the guy. And then they just pardoned all these guys who are like Russian agents, Chinese agents. Yeah, it's pretty terrifying. It's basically
the violent Jan 6ers, like 3 or 4 of which have been rearrested for violent crimes since. Like, I mean, it's like we could probably spend the next hour and not fully exhaust the corruption that we have seen.
Pearson makes the right point, which is something I think about all the time. How do we make this epic corruption comprehensible to his supporters? It still seems there. I mean, if his, maybe his approval rating is holding at 37, some say they say 40%, which is still insane. But there's clearly a base of, I don't know how many, 50 million, 30 million people who are completely on the Trump train. And it feels like anything just bounces off, like, kind of offenses that would just destroy, anybody else, or just like, even if it comes out, like, I really wonder, because this Epstein thing has been like this long, endless striptease, so finally it's like, okay, Epstein writes he was with underage victims at my house for hours, and there's more stuff coming, but it's like, I sort of feel like at this point, like, it's going to come out that, he did the most horrible things imaginable, and everyone's going to be like, so what? It's not even going to make a difference.
Well, I mean, there's a story there, right, about like how you get to that kind of cultural condition where people are sort of able to see past all of this and sort of see what they want to see, and actually, there's a lot of good like social psychology on this that explains like why MAGA exists. Like, some of it is the fault of the left and the technocratic center. Not in the sense that like most people think, right? Like, I don't think MAGA exists because people on the left think there's more than 2 genders. That's like not like what's fucking going on here. What's really going on, right, is something that my philosopher friend Vlad Vexler, right, in the UK, sort of refers to as this sort of this sense of dispossession in the culture among those who feel like they can't touch and affect politics, and this has sort of led to fertile ground for populist demagoguery. One thing to sort of like see this and to see that it's not specifically like a Trump phenomenon is the existence of like these Trump Bernie voters, right, in like West Virginia, right? Some like, when you see like a lot of MAGA voters and you ask them, is there like a Democrat that you would vote for when you go to sort of like the, like poor Appalachia, or rural North Carolina, you get large numbers of them who say they would vote for Bernie Sanders. And the reason for that is not necessarily because they're socialists or they like socialism, and that would be like a nice thing for socialists to hear, but it is a more broader sense of like political dispossession, this understanding that, that there is a stratified elite that, in order to gain access to that elite, to have an effect on politics, to touch politics, as my philosopher friend Vlad Vexer says, is to go through an elite institution, to go through an Ivy League, to get a degree, to learn to talk a certain way, and you have to live in certain places. You have to live in New York City or LA or San Francisco, or Washington D.C., and that like absent sort of like these sort of crossing these milestones, which are that seem impassable for most Americans today, in this sort of like general sense of the collapse of social mobility, you've gotten a lot of people, some people who vote for Trump knowing who he is and actually hope he burns the whole system down,
I
hoping
think that's
that
correct. I agree
from
with
the
you.
ashes that will rise some reemergence of their agency.
And in that sense, it's quite interesting that, Trump and his people attack everybody, but they don't really attack Bernie Sanders that much.
Yeah.
Really, kind of just left alone out there. Cool. Well, it's been almost an hour, and I know you have another talk in half an hour, so I should give you a little moment to
Yeah,
recover.
I'm like, I got all these people are inviting, all everyone's inviting me on their podcast all of a sudden. It's kind of, it's a lot, but I enjoy talking to it. Happy to do this anytime. These are crazy times, and there's always lots of stuff to talk about.
And once again, man, I think we need our own version of Pirate Wire or Free Press.
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll keep talking. We'll keep talking. I've just been so busy, and yeah, I'm not ghosting you, my friend. I promise you that. You heard it here. I'm gonna. I think we. I'm open minded.
It's all we can be in this crazy. All right, buddy. Have a great day. Great to chat. Chat soon. Thanks for everybody for listening. We had about 250 people on, which is great. So we'll do this again soon.
Thanks, Daniel.
Ciao, ciao.